mobility. And I'm working on my superficial backlines and really doing a forward fold stretch so I know I can bend down and pick something up. The one thing that I never understood was they tell you, don't pick things up bending at your back. That's picking up anything in your life.
Yeah.
Like, how many things weigh like 2 pounds that you just bend down and pick it up?
Yeah.
You never train it, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
the remote, you're going to throw your back out. So I work on these things, static stretching that I used to build into my dynamic stretching, into my mobility work. Sometimes I'm legit lunging through the gym, knees over toe style.
Yeah.
Just, I'm finding a pattern. I'm walking through. People are looking at me weird. I'm just like, I'm just working on this.
Yeah, but you said static and dynamic. You know, that's something that we shouldn't just gloss over, right?
Okay.
Define the difference between static and dynamic. What does that look like?
Okay, so by definition alone, static is just holding, and dynamic is going to be through your motion, through a movement pattern. The way I always classify it is that flexibility and mobility are two distinctly different things, right? You're not flexible. You're not mobile because you're flexible and flexible because you're mobile.
Yep.
You can be one or the other. I utilize static stretching, holding my stretches, reaching down and touching my toes, doing a hamstring, doing a straddle split to just hold these positions has prep work for my mobility. And I think this is where a lot of people kind of miss the mark, is that we were taught a lot of times is like, all right, we're going to static stretch. And then we got taught, it's like, well, no, static stretching doesn't really inherently help you at all. We need to do dynamic stretching. And I'm like, okay, so we go through the whole path of the dynamic stretching and warm-ups. And now when you start becoming a little more going down your path to trying to figure things out yourself, you start to piece these little puzzles. You'd be like, oh, this is
the
what's
nuances.
Going on.
When you go down your path, the nuances really become uncovered.
Yeah, and we start looking at this and go, oh, well, if I static stretch, I promoted blood flow, I loosened up the muscle, I got rid of some of this, inherent tension in my fascia, to then now I got mobility work. And now the mobility work teaches me my ranges of motion. So now when I lift, I can hit my range of motion better because I've prepped everything. And I don't think people understand that that's predominantly more important than me deadlifting 500 pounds.
Yeah.
Because how many times am I ever going to come across a need in my life to lift that weight? Not too often.
A car accident where you have to lift the car up or something like that.
And at that point, I'm probably just going to bank on adrenaline.
Yeah.
Lift it up and then
10,000 pounds.
Yeah, and feel broken the next day because that whole adrenaline rush got me, right? But my ability to pick up my daughter off the floor, get on the floor, that's an everyday, multiple times a day kind of thing. Me mowing the yard, me cleaning the house. That's everyday stuff.
Yeah. I think as a society, we started to major in the minor and minor in the major, right? We really focus on things that are so grandiose, and we just throw the things that are necessary to the side, right? One of the, I've seen this video circulating a lot of what the physical education curriculum in the high school ranks used to be in the 50s. And you'd look at everybody, and they're moving. And then what did they have them do? They're swinging on the monkey bars, and they're running over and jumping over the wall. And they're just running and being able to do X amount of push-ups. And then we look at a lot of these, especially more of the big high school settings where the sports are really predominant. They're in the weight room. Yeah.
Pushing maximal weight.
I did that.
Yeah. And we looked at this and we go, all right, this is the new standard of fitness. And we got away from the other thing. I mean, if we look at society back then to now, I think they were pretty much more fit than we were.
Yeah.
The fitness people is like a niche community versus back then, everyone was in shape because everybody moved. Everybody moved like a human moves. And we have to remember, we're animals at nature, right? We have to move like animals, do things, just move around in weird positions. And we got away from that because we wanted to get the big
Arnold Schwarzenegger caused all this.
Boom.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is the one that we should blame for.
He was like, where the timeline split. And then we got even into the generation of the bodybuilders after that. Where I'll even defend the golden era.
Phil Heath and all that. Yeah.
I'll defend the golden era. And we have the Arnolds and the Sergey
Ronnie
Livia.
Coleman.
And then we get into the Ronnie Colemans and the Kai Greens and the Phil Heaths. And they became these bowling balls. They just look like a bowling ball stacked on bowling ball. And then what happened is that's a sport. This is where people didn't want to understand it. That's a sport. So yeah, those are going to be different. But they took that as lifestyle, physical fitness. Being able to do that's the healthy lifestyle. And I'm like, well, and now you did all that, but you can't put your arm over your head. It hurts. Or you can't bend down to pick something up because everything's tight and jacked up. So nothing translates. So it's, part of that journey is trying to
find that balance. I tell you what, speak about balance. So when I was in high school, dude, I was a maniac, bro. Like, you think I'm crazy now. Oh, man. So I would have a class that they would give me like a health class or something like that. I would be cool with the health teacher because he was the football coach. So I would, basically persuade him to let me just go lift weights. So I would go lift weights during that period. After school, I had 2 hours of basketball training. Then after that, I had a personal trainer that I had since 11 years old, and he had me on plyometrics. So all I was doing was stress shortening cycle. All I was doing was jumping bounds, quick jumps, squat jumps, depth jumps, right? The shock jumps, like the Russians created, right? I was doing all of that stuff on top of the weights. So I'll tell you what happened to me though, right? So I was doing all of that. I hated stretching, lifting a lot, and then one day, fractured my pelvis, involution fraction, all right? And a fracture. And I was out for 2 months. And my coach was like, Lance, I told you to stretch. I told you should do your static stretches after. Because we always did dynamic. We always did the A skips, the B skips, the C skips, and all that stuff. But I hated static stretching.
It's boring.
Yeah. Do you think most people hate, the plyos, the static, the dynamic? Do you think that they not even know that, or they're just oblivious to it, or what is it?
Yes to everything. I think a lot of times people are more inclined to want the gratification of the lift. I just pushed this weight. It's like an achievement they just reached. When it comes to the preparation, people don't want to spend time prepping to allow their body to do the thing that needs to do, what they're going to ask it to do. This is where the preparation plays a key role, because in your ability to, a lot of the plyometric work that you do, the end result is to be able to dunk.
Jump higher, run faster, react quicker. Yeah.
So then people want to do those things, but they don't know everything that preps the body. But they don't realize that this allows that to happen there.
Yeah.
So it gets very, it's a psychological thing where they just want that gratification right now.
Yeah.
And then they miss the trees for the forest.
Yeah.
It's what it is. It's they don't understand that, like, hey, you actually learning how to absorb energy is going to translate to you being able to bound better. So then in a game, both of you jump up for a rebound, neither of you get it. Who's going to land and get back up quicker?
Me.
Right? So who's spending the time working on those nuances that then will translate? A lot of the work that I do with the pro athletes is a lot of energy absorption and giving off.
Yeah.
I have a video up where it's working with a prominent running back, and his whole thing is to, we're taking a big medicine ball that's filled with water, and we're trying to throw it into his chest as hard as he can, and he's going to catch it, and he's going to throw it right back. Or he's going to catch it, shove it off, and go for a run.
That recoil.
And that recoil ability. And in basketball, I tell this to a lot of people, and like the way this translates, you're going to drive to the lane. You're going to drop your shoulder into somebody. If you don't know how to absorb that impact, you're going to bounce right off this guy. So how do you absorb that impact? The Euro step that became famous.
Yeah.
No one ever really taught people over here until they started seeing the Europeans do it, and they go, absorb, give off. This is where you're making that second step. This is how it's going to translate. And then once you start doing that, we get back into the stuff we were talking about earlier. How are we loading up these tendons so we can teach them to take on that absorption, strengthen them, react better, and have longevity? Because if your body doesn't know how to absorb, it's going to dissipate through the body and cause a lot of shock. It's only a matter of time before something like this happens, because we haven't taught the body to do these things.
Speaking of that absorption, I had a teammate. His name was Eric Maynor. Played in the NBA, point guard. Not the fastest, not the most athletic. I've probably seen him dunk 2 or 3 times in my lifetime. It's about 6'3". And when he would drive to the lane, he would almost be like parallel with the ground to hit the guy that was coming towards him, because he knew he was coming at him full speed. So he would gauge the force that was coming towards him. He would angle his body just enough so when he hit him, he was straight up. I was like, dude, this guy is amazing. I was like, how do you do that?
Ahead of his time kind of stuff.
Ahead of his time. Listen, I've seen this guy do some incredible stuff, man. Like just with his body, how he could contort and know the bodies and the movement and how he read angles. One of the smartest, IQ-wise, one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And he coaches for OKC. I think he got drafted. No, he got drafted by Utah Jazz, but he coaches for OKC. Listen, intelligent guy.